This is a podcast about one woman's mission to help entrepreneurs and business owners write better business books. Each week, we tackle your writing excuses, because there are excuses too, and help you beat the blank page of doom so that you can write the book that'll grow your life and your business. Now here's your host, Vicky Fraser.
Hello and welcome to the $1,000 Show. I'm Vicky Fraser and this is my husband Joe.
Hello.
Hello. And today I decided to get out of my yellow jogging bottoms and into a dress with bananas on it.
Which is very nice.
Which you bought me.
I did.
And Joe is wearing basically the most amazing t-shirt. It is a T-Rex unicorn with rainbow bits on it. And so you should at least hop over to the YouTube to have a look at Joe's t-shirt and his increasingly large hair.
My crisis hair is becoming unwieldy.
But you will notice that this week, dear listeners and watchers, like if you're listening, you won't notice, we're not wearing hats this week because I brushed my hair.
Yay! And my hair is just getting enormous.
It is. He's turning into a microphone. So today, what are we drinking today? We're drinking fresh orange juice.
Misery orange juice. It's not even got vodka in it or anything.
It's not misery orange juice.
I've only finished mine. We've only just started the podcast. This is bad news.
There's poor planning on your part.
On my carb.
On your carb. We had a bit of a coffee incident earlier, didn't we, Joe?
So
Joe sabotaged me.
I've had a bit of a day, and I think I've narrowed it down to, I think I've now found the cause. Basically, we pour beans into a coffee grinder, and then you press a button to get a dose of ground coffee beans, which you then put into the thingamajig and you
Don't
get
explain
coffee.
it to me, explain it to them. I know how it works.
And I think I pressed the grind button twice when I was making coffee, which resulted in a really aggressive cup of coffee. And I've been a little bit angry and tense ever since.
Whereas I haven't been able to focus on anything. I think I've gone through focus and out the other side. So,
Not good.
Right. This week, we are doing Writing Excuses, episode 2.
Really? Episode 2?
Of Writing Excuses, yeah.
Okay.
We did episode 1 last week. It was time.
Okay.
But this is podcast 215. Can you believe that?
That is a lot of podcasts.
That's a lot of podcasts. That's 5, 10, 15, 20. That's 4 years worth of podcasts.
It kind of is, yes.
Yeah. Anyway, so what are we reading? Joe, what are you reading? I didn't even know I bother asking you this.
I am reading, I think it's either book 10 or 11 of a series called The Wheel of Time. You might have heard of it. It's by an author called Robert Jordan.
Okay, so we need to do a shout out to Maggie. Hi, Maggie.
Hi, Maggie.
Say hi, Maggie. Maggie was also interviewed on Hilary and Margot's podcast. Hi, Hilary and Margot.
Hi, Hilary and Margot.
Not podcast, Hamyor, which is their YouTube show.
Mm-hmm.
And so Maggie found me through our podcast and she emailed to say that her partner is also reading or has also been reading or is still eternally reading The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan.
Has been, is, and probably always will be.
All conjugations of the verb
to read.
To read. Yes. So that made me smile.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad I'm not the only one.
I think I'm going to invite her on the podcast at some point. So Maggie, consider this your invitation. Anyway, I have just about finished reading The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte.
Mm-hmm.
And so next week I'll have at least 2 different books for you that I'm reading, which is quite exciting. I really loved that. I really loved this book.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's made me feel incredibly fortunate that we don't live in those times anymore. Because it's basically about a woman who married this complete shithead of a husband. And then in those days, you were trapped. You couldn't get divorced. You could only leave with their permission. And she basically fled and hid from him with her young son because he was getting his son drunk. His son, bear in mind, was like 4.
Nice.
Yeah, like a proper piece of work. And yeah, but I just love the book because for its time, it's very, like, she's full of, righteous outrage about how women were treated. And yeah, so I feel very fortunate. But we've still got a long way to go. So that's really good. And non-fiction, I'm still reading This Is Your Brain on Music, which is fascinating, but it is quite a tough read. It's quite, not textbooky, but it's heavy,
Mm-hmm.
It's thinky. It's full of musical terms and details and sciencey bits, which I do find fascinating, but I don't read fast. So I think you'll quite enjoy it.
I'll give it a go.
Yeah. Anyway, so the quarantine, what have we been up to? Well, dear
We
listeners.
have broken 2 lawnmowers, fixed 1 lawnmower, fixed a
You
strimmer.
broke one lawnmower, I broke the other, and you fixed one lawnmower.
Yes, yeah. I fixed the strimmer. That was exciting.
Yeah.
I've chopped down a tree that was growing out of a hedge.
Yeah. Not completely chopped it down, just made it stop going all the way over the road. And then we had to not cut down the holly because there's nests in there, so we're going back to that.
Go back to that in a few weeks.
Yeah.
What else have we done?
We have... So I went shopping at 7 a.m.
That's pretty serious.
Because I did not want to be elbowing disease-ridden, people out of the way, and it was actually okay. It was okay. I have not. You've made some amazing bread.
I've made some bread. I'm struggling a little bit with, if I make bread in a tin, then it comes out dense. If I don't make bread in a tin, then it comes out wide.
Okay, so Carol, hi Carol.
Hi, Carol.
Said that maybe some of the denseness came from a higher quantity of wholemeal flour, and that might be true. But has anybody got any tips about making bread in a tin so that it comes out shaped like a loaf rather than a splat? Because the splats are amazing, but it would be nice to have like a sandwich shaped. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And is there a thing that you do? If you're putting it in a tin, do you make it a bit drier, or do you use a bit more yeast or something if it's going in a tin? I don't know. Tips, people. Got vegetables in, got loads of courgette plants, got leeks in.
We've been harvesting
tomatoes. Oh, we're having rocket and Mizuna for lunch every day, which is amazing.
Well.
Yeah. And we had an exciting half hour squirting water up a chicken's bum.
Yes, in uncooperative chicken enema.
Yes.
That's fun.
I mean, no, she was very cooperative. She was poorly, so she'd been laying eggs without shells, and then we were really worried that there was broken eggshell inside her, and just because that's real bad. And she was just very unhappy.
She was very unwell.
Very unhappy. And
she looked like a little football on legs.
So she's now called Pele, because she looked like a football. So her name's Pele. And we just thought, gosh, she might die, because chickens like to do that. And then we read a bunch of stuff on the internet, and apparently squirting cold water up their bums is a good thing to do. It seems mean, because chickens have actually got a really high body temperature, so they don't do well when it's really hot. Anyway, we did some squirting, and she did lots of squirting back. And a couple of days later, she is right as rain.
Absolutely fine.
Yeah, so fingers crossed. I know she laid a really disgusting lash egg, didn't she?
She did lay a lash egg.
Honestly, right, okay, guys, you might be thinking, I'm going to Google lash egg. If you Google, just be warned, it's really gross.
It's gross.
It's really gross. So be out on your own head. If you want to go and Google lash egg, you do so. Anyway, what else we know? We went for a long walk. I hoodwinked you into going for a 6-mile walk yesterday.
Totally conned into a walk, because we did a murder mystery last weekend, and we had some borrowed costumes that needed to go back. And I didn't know where they came from, but they came from somewhere in the village. So we went to give those back last night, and it turned out that it wasn't kind of somewhere in the village. It was like 9 miles away. It
wasn't 9 miles away, but it was quite a long walk, and that means that yesterday I did like 15,000 steps, which is great. And on the way back, they told us a shortcut, which was a much nicer way than the lanes, and we discovered a new walk.
Discovered some new footpaths. It's very nice.
Yes. I've been playing the guitar, and Joe's been playing the ukulele.
Badly.
And I've been playing stuff that my teacher told me to play, but also I have decided... Hi, Joe. But also, I decided that I couldn't just practice those bits of stuff, because I was getting a bit like, same stuff. So I was like, all right, what are my favourite songs? So I've been learning some Crowded House songs to try and sing along to. Only strumming, but I need to practice strumming, because I'm not very good at the strummings. I've been getting up at 5 a.m. and being super fucking smug about it.
Yes, and then getting to like 8 o'clock at night and going, I think it's time for bed. And I'm like, ugh.
Whatever. Anyway, writing excuses. So last week we talked about not having time, and how that is actually a perfectly legitimate reason. Because, busy. So yeah, the writing excuses series, maybe not excuses, but it does sound better than the totally legitimate reasons people give me for not writing their book series.
That could... compressed down to something.
Writing excuses. Yes. So, and this is based on this got me thinking, because I have an email subscriber. I have more than one email subscriber.
You have an email subscriber?
I have one email subscriber. I have more than one. Leslie, who emailed me.
Hi, Leslie.
A long time ago, or a while ago, to say, I can't believe I have anything to say that is novel or unique on leadership and getting what you want in a career. And
presumably leadership and getting careers is what Leslie does for a living.
Yes, it is. She does. Yeah, her field is leadership and recruitment, I guess.
Okay.
And so, yeah, and that's really common. That's a very, not the leadership thing, but, it's very common that I hear people say, oh, what can I add to, the body of work on this subject? Because unless you've totally innovated, unless you're doing like hydroponics on Mars or something, there's probably not going to be that many books on the subject. I mean, there's on that subject, but for almost anything else...
Yeah, you're a mechanic or a hairdresser or a recruitment consultant or a gardener or whatever it is, a writer.
There's a bazillion books on the subject.
There's books out there.
So it is a totally legitimate worry for people to have because they think, I'm not going to have anything new to add, and I just hear that objection all the time. I hear that objection all the time. It's the thing that stops them from writing a book, and it always makes me smile when I hear it because the business owners that I talk to are so good at underestimating themselves, and they forget that they're really good at what they do. They forget that even though they know there are a bazillion books out there on their subject, people who are looking for their help don't necessarily. And they say you don't have anything new or unique to say, but that's not true. It's simply not true. Because even though I can hop on the internet and find a bazillion articles about, for example, leadership and, careers and stuff, they're just random articles by randoms on the internet. They're not by you. Leslie is missing from those articles.
Sure.
So your take on your subject is what is missing. If you're thinking, I can't possibly write a book on, for example, dog training, because, and I use that as an example because I know a lot of people in the dog training industry because of Dom. Hi, Dom.
Hi, Dom.
And Carol and everybody and Cyan and everybody. And so, I can quite understand when a dog person might come to me and be like, oh, there's so many books now springing up because Dom's getting all of his people to write books, which is brilliant. But, what can I add? But you're missing from that. Nobody's heard from you on the subject. And that's kind of the point. It's like your book will bring new people into your world, but also it will give people who already know who you are that extra bit of credibility marker. And if somebody is already in their world and they're already on your email list or they've already read your articles or they're already a customer, who are they going to want to read a book from? They're going to want to read your book, not some random's books that they've never heard of, right?
Sure.
So, yeah, so it's your take on your subject is really, really important. People want to hear why you think the things you think.
The thing that you bring to the body of work on the topic is yourself.
Yeah. And also things are changing all the time. You might discover something new, a new nuance to something that other people haven't noticed or haven't written about before. And that's really important as well. And also, you bring a human side to it because we don't learn purely from facts. In fact, we rarely effectively learn with just the bare facts or something. If you think back to your most boring lessons at school when teachers fired like dates and places and names at you in history lessons. So how much of that do you remember?
Not a lot.
Not a lot. But I remember, and this is an example I use often, I remember being in history and we've been doing the World Wars and stuff, and there was like lots of dates, lots of names, lots of Franz Ferdinands and, all that kind of thing. And our teacher, I remember, this is the only lesson that I remember, our teacher was like, oh, right, we're going to watch a film. And what we watched was Blackadder. We watched the episode where they went over the top. Which, by the way, is, it's just...
an amazing piece of TV.
It's an amazing piece of TV. It really is. Oh, my goodness. I'm even just thinking about it now. And I can remember it partly because he showed it as a history lesson, which, Blackadder in a history lesson is really, really a cool thing to do. And partly because he knew, I don't know why I didn't figure out until then, but he knew that the best way to get us to retain information and to learn was to tell a story.
Yeah.
And so... that was the thing that I have always tried to get my authors to do is, okay, start with the facts, but you've got to come up with the stories to tell, to go with it. Because that's why I think historical novels are great, by the way.
Well, it's kind of, before people were writing, they were telling people stories.
Yes.
We were drawing stories on cave walls. We were talking about stories around the fire. Long before written language, I would have thought.
Yeah, long before.
I'm certainly not an expert, but I would guess so.
Yeah, no, you're quite right. And storytelling is the way that we pass knowledge and skills and wisdom on.
We're almost designed for it.
We are designed for it. We're totally wired for story. And we learn everything we know from stories, like literally everything we know from, we learn it from people's telling of what has happened before. We don't just learn it from saying, don't touch that thing because it's hot. It's like kids they don't process that. But if you tell a story about, what happened when somebody touched something that was hot, or rather than just, there's a bunch of berries down there that will make you sick, they're dangerous. Instead of telling that story, you talk about how, Fred and Wilma had gone off to a picnic and they'd had these berries and, they nearly died and they were vomiting and blah, blah. And, make it colourful, make it memorable. And people will be like, let's stay away from those berries then because they're clearly not good for you. And it's a very simplistic example, but I think it illustrates that, for us to survive and thrive, we have to teach what we know about the world in such a way that people are going to A, pay attention, and B, remember it.
Yeah.
And that's, by the way, not just my opinion. This is neuroscience too. So there's a guy called Antonio Damasio who has written all sorts of really cool books about neuroscience. This quote comes from his book, Self Comes to Mind. And he says about learning and wisdom, the problem of how to make all this wisdom understandable, transmissible, persuasive, and enforceable, in a word of how to make it stick, was faced and a solution found. Storytelling was the solution. Storytelling is something that brains do naturally and implicitly. Implicit storytelling has created ourselves, and it should be no surprise that it pervades the entire fabric of human societies and cultures. There is no human society or culture that doesn't have storytelling in it.
Nice.
Just as I don't think there is any human society that doesn't have music in some form or dance. They're both very, very linked.
Very fundamental to us.
Fundamental. So facts are great, and that's what I get people to think about. It's like if you're thinking I can't write a book because it's already been said, you are focusing on the facts, and that's not what's important. Facts are necessary. They are important. you need to be telling the truth, but they only make a difference when they're wrapped in your experiences and your stories and enhanced by what you've felt, what you have won, what you've lost, and when they're given context within the rest of your life. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Cool. So maybe, I don't know what you're thinking of writing your book about, if you are indeed thinking of writing a book, but, might think about what you want people to take away from your book, what your key message is, and then start thinking about what stories you've got. Maybe you've got really funny stories about something that happened to you, or maybe you've got a heartfelt story or a tragic one. So one of my stories that I like to tell is how, when people are like, I don't know how to finish my book and all the rest of it. It's like, nor do I sometimes. I went all the way to Turkey on a writing retreat for a week a few years ago, and I went to write a book in a week, which is, perfectly possible to get your first draft written. And I wrote 2,809 words, and that's barely a long form article.
It's like a couple of hours for you, isn't it?
Yeah, I can whack that out in a couple of hours easily. And that's all I wrote. And the problem wasn't, there were all sorts of problems. I think one of the main problems was that wasn't the book that I really wanted to write at the time. So there's all sorts of stuff to unpack there. But yeah, that's the story that I tell, and people remember that. It's like, you've been through it as well, because I think, and that's another thing. It's like, tell stories about what your struggles have been, because otherwise you're just this person kind of sitting on the top of a mountain proclaiming stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can easily sit here and go, write a book, and this is what you do, and here's how you do it. And people over there on that side will sit there and go, it's easy for you to say, you're a writer. And I'm like, actually it isn't. I went to Turkey and I wrote 2,000 words. and that's what happened. And like today I've sat here and just basically banged my head against the wall.
I think that's possibly the coffee, but yes.
It's your fault.
My fault. But yeah, I think that's it's important to be human, isn't it? I think in your book, you need to actually be a person.
I quite like the idea of being an octopus.
Being an octopus, yeah.
I teach a Wake Up with Vicky class in the morning at the moment, lockdown class. And I was getting everyone to be an octopus this morning. And then I threatened that maybe Thursday morning's class would be interpretive dance. That would be amazing. If anyone would like to do some early morning interpretive dance with me, send me an email and I will make it happen. We'll be octopuses.
Sounds great.
Are you going to come do it?
No.
You have no sense of fun. So instead of thinking that you have nothing new to say, think about how to say what you know. Think about how to tell your story and how to tell somebody else's story, maybe if that works better. and how it will help your reader to relate to you, to learn from you, and to make the change in their life that they want to make through reading your book. Because people read non-fiction books for a reason. So why are they reading it? What do they want to get out of it? How can you change their life? How can you tell stories that make it more likely that they will do what you want them to do? So, yeah, I have to be able to relate to the person who is teaching me, or I switch off.
Yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, it's just, like you say, lists of facts and all that kind of stuff are great, but
no, they're not.
There's nothing there, is there?
They're not useful. Lists of facts are not useful for almost everybody. I think there's like maybe a certain type of person, if you're going to go into personality types and stuff, who, I don't know, who would respond to just memorising a list of facts. And definitely people who are not neurotypical, maybe people with Asperger's or autism, they might well respond to that. But I'm talking about, you've got to know your audience. And for most people who are like whatever normal means who are, neurotypical, I guess is the word. They want stories, even if they value the facts, and even if they value the list, they're still going to want to know what your take on it is and why they should listen to you, because your opinions on the facts are what is going to tell me whether or not you're worth listening to. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's like those memory techniques, isn't it? If you want to remember a list of things, then you write. You think of a journey where you see the objects and you interact with the objects.
Well, that's what Sherlock Holmes did, isn't it? I know Sherlock Holmes is fictional, but the memory palace.
Yes.
And you have like a constructed building in your mind, and each room has got the stuff in that you need to remember.
Has reasons and things in it. And
So you walk through the green door, which is, the green door will symbolise whatever it is that you're...
Yeah.
It's like, And you construct that story, and that's how people...
That's how people remember things.
That is literally how. It's like, those memory competitions that people have, that's the technique they use, isn't it? So,
indeed.
Yes, indeed.
That's what I was going to say before you, dived in and...
Sorry, I got all excited.
Sherlock Holmes did it all up.
Well, okay. Sorry. What's the takeaway?
Your experience matters.
When you do that.
Try hard not to just deliberately read the notes. How you interpret the facts is the important thing. How the journey and the story and all the rest of it, the you of it is the important stuff, not the bones of it.
It is. Thank you.
Your experience matters.
Yeah, no, that's very nice. Thank you. So next time, we're going to have more writing excuses, or more perfectly legitimate reasons people give me for not writing their book. It's not as pithy.
It's not snappy.
So next time, we're going to talk about why would anyone buy my book when they can just look on the internet, because everything's on there for free.
Right.
Which may sound like it's very closely related to this one, and it kind of is, but it's not. It's not the same.
Is, but isn't.
Is, but it isn't. And what's going on in my world? Well, the waiting list for my live blank page to book in 90 days course is finally open, and it all works.
So is it a waiting list or is it a joining form?
It's a waiting list.
Okay.
The waiting list is open. Because there's only 20 spaces for this.
Right.
20 spaces. The course starts on August the 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
The waiting list is open now, and the sale, it will be open for sale for people on the waiting list a week before everybody else, and that'll be in mid-June.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're on the waiting list, you get first dibs.
Cool.
And then I will open it up to everybody else. And if you would like to get on the waiting list, or at least go and have a look, see what it's all about, see if it's a good fit for you, go to moxiebooks.co.uk/90-day book course live. It's a more sensible URL than the last one.
It is.
And the link will be in the show notes, of course.
Cool.
So you can go and have a look. What else do we need to say?
If you've listened to every episode, email us with your postal address and we will send you a superfan gift. Mostly because a long time ago, Vicky bought millions of them.
No, because you mean a lot to me.
You're a very special person with particular tendencies to listen to hundreds of podcasts by us rambling. But nevertheless, we've got a box of things. And if you want one...
A box of things.
All you got to do is email us and we'll send you one.
And if you like this episode in particular, please go and rate it and review it and
5
go
stars.
to iTunes and subscribe, or subscribe wherever you get your podcast from, and or share it. If you know somebody who will enjoy this nonsense, send them a link. moxiebooks.co.uk/podcast.
Nice.
Thank you for listening and watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, we'll be back next week. So it's goodbye from me and
me.
Cool.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. You can find links and show notes on the website at moxiebooks.co.uk/podcast, where you can also sign up for the best daily emails in the multiverse and find loads of free resources to help you write your book. We'll be back the same time next week with more tales from the book writing trenches and the latest on what the tiny sheeps have been up to.